scar on the wall for?
You made me miss.
Sorry.
I've never missed that board before.
An American Werewolf in London is an early 1980s horror comedy that is written and directed by John Landis. So An American Werewolf in London was last week's patron poll winner. So if you're interested in empowering your voice on this channel and getting some exclusive voting power, I would highly recommend becoming a $1 patron, and you'll be able to vote on these weekly polls. This week, I have a Cronenberg poll. So if you want to be able to vote on that poll, all you gotta do is give me $1 measly of your hard-earned cash to this poor soul. So An American Werewolf in London is one of those classic, iconic horror films that I've known for an incredibly long period of time. I just never took the time and went out of my way to actually watch this film. But I gotta say, I'm kind of skeptical when it comes to horror comedies, because I feel like with horror comedy, like, it's just always been that genre that's been kind of hard for me to get into, because I feel like it's truly a difficult genre to actually get right and to actually get me sucked into what's happening and for me to actually enjoy it, like, as an overall product. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's horror comedies that I absolutely love. The Evil Dead trilogy is one of them. I pretty much love every single one of those films. Shaun of the Dead is probably one of my favorite comedies of all time. And, so yeah, like, if it's done right, like, it can be an incredible genre of filmmaking. But I feel like sometimes I don't know what's supposed to be taken seriously and what's not. And when I'm watching a film like that, it's really just confusing, because I'm like, was that just done poorly, or am I supposed to laugh at that? Like, was that part of the joke? But with that being said, I obviously went into An American Werewolf in London with some sort of skepticism, regardless of the fact that most people seem to really, really love this film. I'm somebody that really loves horror films, but I think I'm somebody who enjoys more like atmospheric horror and more of that kind of subtle, slow burn type of horror, more than just the kind of fun, gory, just have a good time with your friends type of horror. So that was kind of another reason why I went into this film with some sort of reservation. And now that I've seen it, I could say that I really, really enjoyed this film. There's tons of things about this film that I thought was really entertaining, and overall I thought this was just a really fun ride. I haven't seen many werewolf movies at all. Matter of fact, I can't even think of one off the top of my head that I've actually seen, so this is, if not one of the first werewolf movies I've ever seen in my entire life. But like I said, I actually surprisingly had a good time with this film, and that's really for a lot of different reasons. I think the first one being the fact that I kind of felt the self-awareness with this film a lot more. Like, I truly felt that this film was aware of what it was doing. It was aware of its approach, and it kind of knew what it wanted to be. It didn't feel like it was trying to like juggle in between genres, and it truly had an identity, and I think that's why it was really easy for me to get into it. There were maybe like a few things that I guess like I couldn't tell if it was trying to be funny or not, but as an entire piece of filmmaking, I found it, I didn't find it to really lack an identity, and that was really important for me going into it. But another thing about this film that I thought was honestly pretty astonishing was obviously the makeup and special effects work. Throughout this film, I was really surprised at how well this film held up in a lot of different ways. I mean, sure, you can tell that, you know, it's a 1980s film, but the impact is still there. Like, there's a lot of scenes in this film where you're like, wow, I'm still feeling the impact of this, even though the entire thing is pure makeup and pure practical and prosthetic work. And I really admire and praise the fact that virtually this film doesn't rely on any type of CGI, at least that I could see, and all of it was purely based on practical effects, and that was really impressive. And the fact that it held up in a really impactful way really stunned me, and I really enjoyed that about this film. I mean, the werewolf transformation scene alone was just absolutely baffling. Like, it was truly stunning. Like, I personally found it incredibly difficult for me not to feel strained and for me not to feel some type of cringy anxiety when I'm watching it, because, again, like, the way that the entire thing was paced and the way that it was acted out, and again, obviously, the prosthetic work throughout the entire scene, just really works. And again, it's kind of like when you're watching John Carpenter's The Thing. Like, you can tell that it's prosthetic work, but it's the way that it's handled, it doesn't lose the impact. Like, you truly feel, the pain and the gore and everything that's unfolding on screen. One layer to that scene as well that I thought just gave it this extra oomph and this extra sense of irony was the music, because the music in the background is this kind of really comfortable, relaxing, like smooth type of music, and it serves as an excellent juxtaposition to the scene, and it makes it feel that much more uncomfortable when you're watching it. And that scene was just truly incredible. Like, I was just like, wow, this is just really uncomfortable, but really fun to watch. And honestly, it's probably one of the best scenes in the entire film. But it's definitely worth mentioning because I was just like, wow, what a scene. Rick Baker is the guy who did the makeup and special effects, and if I'm correct, I think that he won the Oscar for this, and he also won it for The Wolfman, which I still haven't seen that either. And that's pretty awesome. I think it's well deserved. I mean, I don't know what else came out that year, but just from that scene alone, like, I think it's deserving. But even beyond that scene, like, there's a lot of scenes, because the main character has this friend who keeps kind of appearing in the film, and he reappears in his mind as this kind of like traumatic reminder of a certain action that he does in the film. And the makeup on him, like, every time he shows up, is just kind of like, your first thought is just like, wow, like, they put a lot of effort into how he's looking right now. And the fact that this was made in 1981, and I'm not getting this like, holy shit, this is so dated and awful vibe, is really impressive. So yeah, the makeup and the practical effects were just absolutely excellent, and huge praise there. And the soundtrack overall I thought worked really well, because classic rock is kind of used throughout this film, but it's always used in a really ironic way, which, you know, in my opinion, I think irony and juxtaposition in cinema, when done right, is just incredibly fun and powerful. And there's one scene in this film where they use Creedence's Bad Moon Rising, and I thought it was just used incredibly well. And you know, the lyrics correspond to with what's happening in the film, and I thought it was a really clever way to use the song. So yeah, the soundtrack overall was also it was really well incorporated into the film. But there are a few things about this film that I wasn't fully on board with. The first one being is the relationship with the main character, David, and the nurse. Like, I didn't hate their dynamic or anything, but their dynamic felt, in my opinion, a little forced. It didn't feel like the most genuine thing going on, and maybe that was intentional, but the relationship seemed to come off as like some sort of like male fantasy that just really doesn't exist. And even the way that the nurse has feelings for David is kind of like jokey. Like, and I get that that's probably the point, but I guess like it was kind of hard to really care about both of these characters. And I guess that made it kind of hard to care about like who dies, who doesn't. And I didn't feel like the film had too much stakes, just because I feel like I really didn't resonate with any character in this film. And, you know, that might be just a personal thing, but the characters I didn't feel were that insightful. Even David, you know, he's the main character, and he's the American guy, but he kind of just came off as just normal, simple American guy. And I guess I was expecting maybe a little bit more depth than that. But his character wasn't completely, you know, bland. Like, there are actions that he takes in this film that you do admire, and you do kind of feel sorry for him here and there. But overall, like, I personally just didn't resonate that much with honestly any of these characters. But apart from that, there's also this sex scene in this film that just feels so unnecessary. Like, you know, if it's there, it's okay, but I just feel like it was sustained to a really unnecessary amount of time. And like, if it's there, that's fine, but again, like, it didn't need to be that long. I feel like you could have cut that, and it doesn't take away anything from the film. And I get maybe they're trying to go for some sort of thing like, oh, like he's a beast and they're animals and they're making love, but I got the point. I didn't really feel the need. It's not even graphic or anything. It just lasts too long. But one other thing about this film that I actually enjoyed was that it knew where to end. Like, it didn't try too hard to extend itself any further, and it just concluded right where it needed to. And I appreciate a film like that, to where, like, it just knows. Like, it doesn't feel like it's trying too hard to make something more out of it. It's just, that's what you get, and that's the ending. And I really appreciated that out of the film. But one other thing about this film that I also haven't really touched on yet is the cinematography. I think the camera work in this overall was actually better than I expected. Because when I think of 1980s horror films, I don't really think of, you know, clever uses of camera work. And this film, I feel like there was a nice handful of scenes where I was, like, shocked at how much effort that they put into the angle. And like, there's one shot in particular in the subway scene that takes place, like, at the very top of the escalator, and the way that it was just framed and the way that it was positioned, it just felt really smart, and it was really visually appealing on top of it. So yeah, the camera work overall I thought was a lot better than I truly expected. So that's one other thing about this film that I truly enjoyed. So overall, like I said, I really enjoyed this film. Overall, it was a really fun watch. I definitely don't regret watching it. It's just that the main character not being, you know, that interesting in my opinion, kind of dragged the film down a little bit. And one thing I also forgot to mention, there was, like, these kind of dreamlike flashback things that he would have. And some of them I was like, okay, but then some of them I felt like, you know, what's the use for this? Like, I guess it was trying to be artsy, but I'm not sure where I land on that yet. Like, I think I'm still on the fence on some of those dream sequences and whether or not they were really even necessary. Like I said, overall, I still really enjoyed the film. There were a few things about it that I thought were lacking and kind of dragged it down a bit. But most of this film I truly enjoyed, and I was really surprised at how well the practical effects really held up. And I was also really surprised at how well the aesthetic work was too, in terms of both the soundtrack, and the camera work. So I'm going to give An American Werewolf in London a 7 out of 10. Yeah, if you haven't seen this film yet, which I think most of you have, I was kind of in the minority in saying that I haven't seen it yet, so I'm sure most of you have seen this film. But if you haven't seen it yet by chance, I would definitely recommend it. It's definitely more on the fun side, but it's still a fun movie. And it's got some unsettling shit here and there, so don't let the comedy fun approach fool you. There are some moments in here that are kind of uncomfortable. Yeah, that's all I got to say about American Werewolf in London. If you really enjoyed what I had to say, please give this video a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.